And let's talk about Jalen Hurts. Coming off a Super Bowl win with the Eagles, the tush push, could it be banned? I don't know. There's a lot of things to talk about with his dynasty value. And I think we're kind of getting to the point of where we need to talk about what we're going to do with him. So, Coach, I'm going to kick it to you. What are you doing with Jalen Hurts on your fantasy teams?
Yeah, it's definitely all related to the tush push, right? 32 of Hurts' 54 rushing touchdowns in his career are tush push touchdowns. I think the last 2 years he's combined for 24 tush push touchdowns. So a lot of that comes back to what you think is going to happen with the tush push. Obviously, Hurts is an elite fantasy player as it stands currently. If something was to change with that play, then that would change drastically. I think some of it comes back to right now his value is extremely high. At least in the dynasty world, you can get a lot for Hurts. Like I was messing around with this the other day because me and you are Hurts owners and we were looking at possibly moving him. You can get Herbert and Chase Brown for Hurts in a 4th-round pick. If the tush push gets banned, you got to feel a lot better about that. Like he goes from, a top 3 quarterback to somewhere between 10 and 15 if the tush push gets banned and those touchdowns go away at least, or if those rushing touchdowns get cut in half. So what's your thinking on Hurts, Matt?
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point there, Coach. Is if it gets banned, his value takes a hit. Now, when we look at his passing touchdowns, it's not anything really to run away with. I mean, he had 18 this past season, 23 the year before that, 22 the year before that, and 16 before that. So he's not going to carry the day with the passing work. It's the rushing work. He has had more than 10 rushing touchdowns every single year since 2021. Last year, 14. The year before that, 15. The year before that, 13. It is a ton of rushing upside for him, and a lot of it comes at the goal line because of the tush push. So that's definitely going to be something that would impact his value. Now, you could do a traditional QB sneak, sure, but if they go away and you've got Saquon in the backfield, there's nothing wrong with them just handing it off to him and run it through the middle on the goal line. So I think his value is definitely in jeopardy here because it's just so heavily inflated by those goal line carries. And like I said, the passing work just isn't there for me, not enough for me to feel comfortable that I can just roll him out there. You mentioned his value. It's at probably about 3 future firsts if you're just going to trade him for picks straight up. But if we're talking about picks in this current class, it's probably the 101 and the 102. What'd you say, Coach?
Yeah, probably. And just a couple of trades that come across keep trade cut. When you look at the dynasty calculator, what comes out to fairly even. You could trade Hurts for Caleb Williams and David Montgomery. That looks like it's even, depending on how you feel about Caleb. Obviously, he's younger. Drake May and Najee Harris. I mean, some of those things you can make a play for a younger guy, depending on how you feel about that as well. Obviously, there's some risk in that. There's a lot of risk in waiting around to see what happens to the tush push too. Because if the tush push gets banned, then you're going to be, stuck holding the bag basically.
Yeah, so I think we're both kind of in the same boat of we're going to be shopping Jalen Hurts around, seeing what we can get, just given the uncertainty of the tush push and kind of the lacking in the passing game. I mean, he's certainly got great wide receivers there, but there's always drama between him and A.J. Brown and what's going to happen going forward. I don't know, but what I do know is I'm not going to rely on Jalen Hurts to be a pocket passer. I mean, he can get it done, and he's proven that. He's won a Super Bowl, but in fantasy terms, I'm not comfortable with him being my QB1 as a true pocket passer if that rushing side upside is truly clipped like it could be. And that's not to say he's going to be a bad player because he's going to score a bunch of fantasy points. So don't hear what we're not saying. But it's just time to start looking to see if there's somebody else out there that you might be able to go and get.
Well, look, Hurts is a good football player, right? He's a good quarterback. Most people would love for him to be the quarterback of their football team. That being said, if something happens with the tush push, then his fantasy value, tanks drastically. So if you're going to move him, now's the time to do so.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, let's jump to Joe's question here, Coach. He says, is Brandon Aiyuk a buy? He's looking to upgrade for a wide receiver 3. Well, I'm glad that you recognize him as being a wide receiver 3 because that's probably a good place to start of where is he valued. For me, I'm not going to lie. I am interested. I mean, he's 27 years old. There's lots of issues going on in San Fran, but I think he's a little bit cheap right now, and he might be worth it. I think you could probably offer an early second or a mid second, and you might be able to close the deal just because of everything that's happening out in San Francisco and where people's heads are on him. There's a lot of question marks, and I think it's something that I'd be willing to take a chance on if I'm looking to buy a wide receiver 3 for pretty cheap. What about you, Coach?
Yeah, this time last year, I was screaming that he's overrated, and I still think that was definitely true then. Now his market has came down a lot, so he's definitely a guy you can go out and get much cheaper today than you could this time a year ago. So that's something I would be willing to consider.
Yeah, and he even asks, what are maybe some trades that we've seen? I don't know if I've seen a trade actually in any of my leagues for Aiyuk here recently, but like I said, I think an early second or a mid second is a good starting point. Some people are going to want a first. I probably wouldn't pay a first because, like you said, you're getting a wide receiver 3. But, Coach, let me ask you some names here. If you could move, let's say, Jaden Reed for Aiyuk, would you be interested in that?
Yeah, I would consider that. I mean, I think that's fairly even depending on how you feel about both guys.
Okay. What about maybe a guy like Jalen McMillan in a late third?
Oh, I'd rather have Jalen McMillan. That's how I feel when it comes to Aiyuk myself.
Okay.
It's like
Well,
I like McMillan's upside a lot.
sure. I don't hate it. They're pretty close in value. I'm just kind of thinking of some names
Yeah.
off the top of my head.
Mhm.
So let us know, Joe, who's on your team, and we're happy to give you some advice of who you might be able to move or who might be available to go get a guy like Brandon Aiyuk. But let's carry on because here's some names that are going to be kind of in that same territory, Coach. So let's walk through those first, and let's start with DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is definitely kind of been interesting here, being a move to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's a lot to like and a lot to not like. I'm not sure that he's ever going to get back to that wide receiver 1 production. Obviously, it's a fresh start for him in Pittsburgh, but it's been years since he's had a true wide receiver 1 season, Coach, and you've kind of been the trumpet of this for the last several years. So I'll let you go first, but is he still a sell for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely a sell. I think he's more of a sell now than ever before. DK is a good player. I do think he's a solid player. I just don't think he's ever the top flight guy that everyone makes him out to be. Definitely now going to Pittsburgh, I really feel like his production's gonna drop off a little bit. Even though he's still a solid player. Most people would love to have him on their team, also similar to Hurts. But at the same time, now's a great time to try to move him because people are hype about the move. Some people love it. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't feel great about it. I'd be looking to cash out on this if possible.
Yeah, I think I would be too. I mean, he's 27. He's pairing up with George Pickens, which is an interesting combination because they're almost clones of each other. They
Mhm.
do a lot of the same things and have kind of the same flaws. There's currently not a quarterback in Pittsburgh. So there's a lot of just issues that would just spark me to say, I think I'm going to try and remove him or try and, retool my roster and see if I can get something new. I mean, his value right now is akin to the 112 to the 202. So we're not too far off from where Brandon Aiyuk is, who we were just talking about. But, given the situation in Pittsburgh, I think I would be looking to move DK Metcalf if I could.
Yeah, I just think in general, the world thinks DK is a top 5 wide receiver without thinking about it and looking at the numbers at times. 22 in half PPR, he was wide receiver 18. 23, he was 16. Last year, he was wide receiver 32. Like, I just think you can get more for him than the production you're going to get in return if you keep him.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think a lot of times we're hanging our hat on that 2020 season where he had 83 catches for 1,300
Mhm.
yards and 10 touchdowns. Outside of that, it's been disappointment. I mean, in 2021, he was wide receiver 11 with 12 touchdowns, but 66 catches last year, 66 the year before, just barely around 1,000 yards each season. So he's not necessarily moving the needle. Like you said, he's a good player, but he's not going to be a guy
Mhm.
that can be your wide receiver 1. And a lot of people still view him as that. So capitalize while you can because he's 27 and he's going into not a great situation. We'll see if, Pittsburgh drafts someone, but there's just so much uncertainty that I'm not ready to tie that to my roster.
Yeah, and you got to know this hurts Matt to say because no one's been bigger DK Metcalf fan than Matt has.
Yeah, I mean, I was hopeful a lot of times he could bounce back to that previous form. I mean, he's just an athletic freak, but it's just frankly not there. And it's not going to be there in Pittsburgh for me. So I would be looking to move. I mean, if you could get anything like the 112 to the 202, I'd be absolutely satisfied with that. What about you, Coach? Would you be happy with any of those picks?
Oh yeah, anything late first, early second, I would 100% consider that for DK.
Yeah, and I think you can get that done. I mean, I'm currently in one of the leagues that we're both in. I own DK, and I'm trying to currently move him for a running back. So if I can get that done, maybe during the show, I will certainly share that. But so far, it's not there yet. But I'm really looking forward to getting him off my roster.